Who am I? What am I? I can't remember. Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. My name is Ken Boyter and today we are looking at The Guardians of Light by James West. Now this is a self-published novella, so I thought it'd be quite good to look at a self-published book and have a little chat about the whole self-publishing thing as well. James contacted the Bottled Imp and said, would we have a look at it? And I said, yes. Guardians of the Light, as I say, it's self-published, and I thought, yeah, let's have a quick chat about self-publishing. Now, the reason why I'm going to talk about this is self-publishing, are they any good when you self-publish? And the only reason why I say that is there are filters when you get published by an actual publisher. So for example, you may need an agent. So how do you get an agent? Well, you send your manuscript, your hard work off to an agent. And of course, if they've got thousands or hundreds of people sending them their manuscript, they can be picky, they can be choosy. So there's a filter system there. Publishers will also require readers. They have readers. Basically, they employ people to read and they have certain stages. So your book, if it does get sent to a publisher via an agent, because they may only accept manuscripts from agents, they then still have what they call a pile, a slush pile. Well, that's normally for unsolicited. But if you do get an agent to send it to a publisher, then you may get to the first reader, the second reader, the third reader, and then you may not even get your novel to the person that can make the actual decision whether or not they're actually going to publish the book. So there are filters built in, and therefore the competition is high, and therefore the quality should get published. But that's not always the case. I've read some terrible books that have been published from an actual publisher. Equally, I've read some obviously high quality books, and equally I've read some very, very good self-published books and some terrible self-published books. So if you have self-published, please do contact us if you'd like us to review them, but just be prepared that we may not accept them. But that's like everything that I read. You know, I sometimes start reading something that has been published and I won't review it because I think, well, what's the point sometimes? Unless it's a big title, and that's a different matter. So self-publishing, though, there are people that have self-published and been very successful. Beatrice Potter, Rudyard Kipling, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Mark Twain. There are hundreds of people that have self-published that are very good, so don't be put off by that. In fact, he says, a quick plug, I self-published. This is The Legends of Grimace Iron Blood, and it's available on Amazon now. I self-published this. Now I'm going to be in a position of sending this off to reviewers to see, you know, I want objectivity. I want somebody to review it who doesn't know me, because then I'll know where I am with my writing and the quality of the book, and then hopefully I can improve on it. And I guess that's why people like sending their stuff to reviewers. Anyway, let's crack on with The Guardians of the Light. Now the setting, it's set in present day USA, and it's all about a teenager called Matt Lumen, and he has lost his memories. He doesn't know who he is. He has been living in a foster home, and so he's got a few friends, and they don't know who he is either. And so it's, first of all, it's him trying to come to terms with losing his memories and what that actually means. Now, what happens is a trigger. Him and his friends get attacked by a monster. Now you might think, wow, that is out of the ordinary. Yes, it is, because this is an urban fantasy. This is set in present day, and then something supernatural or, you know, fantasy happens to that character, and therefore the story diverts into a kind of more supernatural fantasy world. And this is exactly what's happened. So this novella actually has a couple of themes running through it, so even though it's quite slim in terms of the actual page number, James does manage to pack in quite a few themes. One of them is belonging, and of course if you've lost your memories, it's like, well, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? Where should I belong? So Matt starts questioning all of that, and that's one of his main obsessions, and it would be. I'd want to know if I didn't know, you know, who I was and where I came from. And so therefore that leads on to the whole aspect of family, friends and community, because then you think, well, what sort of person was I previously and what type of friends did I have? Now if you've lost your memories, does that actually change your personality? And therefore if you change your personality, do you get a whole new bunch of friends? Because like normally attracts like. It also questions your strengths and weaknesses, because the situations that Matt finds himself in, because he doesn't know who he was, he has to sort of learn about himself all over again. So he has to discover his strengths, his inner strengths as well as his outer strengths, and also his weaknesses. And that's something, if you're going to try and learn and grow as a person, it's always good to examine your weaknesses. For example, I have trouble with spelling. So years ago, I was very fortunate, I had extra spelling lessons, and I made it, tried to turn it from a weakness into a strength, and I was very particular about it. So those sort of things, so try and self-improve, you have to look at your weaknesses as well. So in order to know yourself, you then have to start examining your actions, because obviously actions can speak louder than words. So when you're up against it, how do you react to something? How will you react to a certain moral decision that you have to make? And life, isn't always easy. It's not always clear cut. There's also the added theme of adolescence and the growing pains that brings. Now, in this is slightly more complex, because although when you're an adolescent, normally you know who you are, you know where you've come from. When I say who you are, as in you established where you've come from, who your friends are, who your family are, etc., etc. But in this case, in Matt's case, he's having to kind of grow through the growing pains, go through his adolescence, without all of that knowledge. So it's doubly hard for him. So therefore he starts to, there's a bit of isolation that can happen, because he feels maybe he doesn't fit into the community that he's actually in when we start the story. Now, so you've got all those themes that run through this, and the quality of writing, it's solid, it does flow, it's maybe on the simplistic angle, but that, I think, is because this is more aimed for young adults. This is a young adult novella that deals with topics that young adults are going through, so they can identify with that, maybe a bit more readily than I can at the moment, at my age. But obviously I went through it, so I can put my mind back into that mindset. So it does flow, as I say, it's slightly simplistic, but then it is a bit of a page turner. There isn't anything that really holds up the reader. The action moves very swiftly. Some of the dialogue could have been trimmed back a little bit. And also, the James West, I think when you self-publish, it depends how you've self-published. Because maybe, I don't know if this was edited by someone else, and I totally recommend that. I had Kate Miller edit my book, and you need that somebody else's opinion, that's what I believe. Now, I don't know if this was actually had an editor, because there was a few sections in there that I thought, yeah, that's not really moving the story along, that's not really adding anything. And there was a bit some of the dialogue, I was thinking, that didn't really add to it. Now, that's fine, it didn't really slow anything down too much, because it's dialogue, and you can read dialogue a lot quicker than you can actually read prose. I did think the story was engaging, and I did think it piqued my interest, because I was very curious to find out who Matt was, where he came from, and where he was going. And obviously, if you're suddenly confronted by a monster and you're not expecting it, again, where's that monster come from? What is it doing there? Why? Did it attack? All of those questions were intriguing, and I just felt that I'm not the target audience for this, and I felt it might have been a little bit cliched, but if I was 10, 11 or 14 maybe, I would have enjoyed this, because I think some of it would have been fresh to that age group. And I do think it's, as I say, the story idea of somebody losing their memory and not knowing who they are, is a really solid idea to base any story. It's not an original idea, but it's very difficult to come up with original ideas. It's what you do with those ideas, and I think James West did a good job of actually moving the story along. I would also say it really had that feel of it was sort of a setup, for a series of books set in this world, with these characters. but it does self-contain as well. And he did do that clever mix of, yes, it feels like it's the beginning of a longer story, but it is self-contained, and that's not always an easy thing to pull off. And then when I looked up online a bit more about the author and a bit more about the book, yes, he has written book 2 and 3. Now I don't think they're necessarily direct sequels, I don't know, I haven't read them yet, but they certainly are tied into this universe. And that made sense. I thought, okay, good, you know, he's actually prolonged the stories actually, and there was room, and I think because it was such a short novel, it's a novella, he could have explored this world a lot more, and I don't think people would have objected to that. I wanted to know a little bit more about, I guess, the future, because when I came to the end, it kind of not ended abruptly, but I just felt I wanted to know more, which I guess is a good thing. So the fact that he's written books 2 and 3 is great. So, would I recommend this? Yes, not necessarily if you're an adult. I think it's too set in the young adult mindset for adults to really enjoy it. I mean, it's very harsh to compare this to something like Lord of the Rings or you know, Harry Potter, because it's not that type of thing. It's dealing much more with adolescent issues. But if I was 10 to maybe 13, maybe 14, I think I would really enjoy it. If you're an adult who wants to buy a gift, then yeah, I would recommend this as a gift to you know, to a nephew or whoever, you know, somebody of that age group. So, The Guardians of Light, I would recommend it if you're an adolescent. The Guardians of Light by James West. It is on Amazon. I don't know if it's in any bookshops. It's self-published. So yeah, check it out. I think there's a few reviews on Amazon as well, so you can check out what they've been saying. And I did manage to track it down on Goodreads, the app Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Obviously, we've got lots more episodes that we've banked. They're already up on YouTube. We've been going for just over a year and a half now, so there's plenty of content for you to look at. And remember, we've got social media stuff happening, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of thing. But until next time, remember, keep it unreal.